All right, so some of these words you may never ever hear. They're generally advanced phrases, words that you would hear in a boardroom, in a meeting, or maybe just in your company. So they're not normally things that somebody would teach you. They are quite unique. So let's just dive in. De facto, the unofficial leader. So maybe you look around, hey, who's in charge here? Well, we haven't agreed exactly, no election, but at the moment, he is. He is the de facto leader. And that could happen in lots of other situations. The de facto leader, the de facto appointed person for cleaner or for emergencies or first aid, the de facto, just the one that's kind of either elected or self-elected to do that particular role. De facto. Carte blanche. Free reign. All right, so sometimes you might have some guidelines, but generally you've got free reign to do as you please. Use your professional knowledge and your professional wisdom within this project, because you know what I want and I trust you as the expert in this arena. Please just have carte blanche, free reign. Per se. Now I use this a lot. Per se, in itself. So I'm not going to say I'm the best teacher per se, but a lot of my students really like me and they rave about me. They say how great I am. So I'm not the best per se, but I get a lot of adulation. Verbatim, word for word. Yes, Your Honor, that is what he said. He said you could take it and stick it up your... Sorry, Your Honor. All right, so for example, in a court or to a police officer, or when you're reporting back something somebody said. Yeah, he said that verbatim. Oh. Okay, the status quo. You might go to a company and think, oh my goodness, is that right? Should we be doing this? It's kind of unusual. I've never seen this before. Oh yeah. It's just the status quo in this company. It's normal. It's normal for this company to do things like that. So the status quo. Ad hoc. Only when it's really needed and unplanned. So for example, we had an unplanned meeting with the new client because they happened to be in our city and I knew they were coming to this restaurant. Maybe you have some inside information. But anyway, ad hoc, meaning unplanned and also when needed. Okay, quid pro quo, favor for a favor. Now, when you're in those elite circles, not that I've ever been, but when you're in elite circles, like high-level politicians or people with a lot of power and influence, you don't charge people for introductions. For example, let's pretend for a moment you're Elon Musk and you're at a dinner party and somebody says, oh, I helped you get in touch with that I don't know, engineer, that rocket scientist or whatever. And he says, yeah. I don't suppose you can help me. I'm looking for somebody to do X, Y, and Z. So, a little bit of quid pro quo, you remember? Is that okay? So it's the polite way of saying, look, I helped you. Maybe you could help me. All right? But it's very understated. It is not very shouty about it. It's very gentle. If somebody helps you, you need to help them in return. Quid pro quo. Especially amongst the elites, it's kind of unspoken. You help me, I help you. So no money is involved. Because you can't put a price on maybe getting an introduction with Elon Musk or speaking to a high-level politician that maybe one day has a favor to help you. You know what I mean? Pro rata. So this is just proportional. So if you go for a job, for example, and you work part-time. The job you go for is part-time. Maybe you're only doing 20 hours. And you ask about the holiday, the benefits, etc. And they say, well, it's pro rata, meaning it's proportional to the full-time hours. So if full-time hours is 40 hours, but you are only applying for the part-time job, it would be half, right? So pro rata, proportional, pro rata. Often talked about with holiday. That's the most common. Vice versa. This way and that way. Something that works in two different ways. In this example, we've got an electric motor. If you're putting the brakes on, the electric motor will work as an alternator. What do they call it? Like e-braking, regenerative braking. Basically an alternator, putting power back into the batteries. Right? So vice versa. It works both ways. And this is used for a lot of different things. It's easy to use this in many, many situations across different industries or different conversations. Okay, moving on. Pro bono. Pro bono. I think Americans say pro bono. I don't know. Free. Charity. Giving back to your community. Often you'll find that a lawyer or solicitor will take on one or two cases pro bono for free. A lot of industries, even teachers, will sometimes do pro bono work, although we don't really label it as pro bono. I think it's expected and it's talked about in those circles of solicitors and lawyers, and because it's kind of like your official work and you're officially doing it all above board and correct, but you're not receiving any funds for it. Whereas if I help a student, maybe I have my neighbor has a young boy, maybe I help him learn English, I do work with him online. In that case, I would just say I'm teaching him for free. This is the case for a lot of teachers. We help somebody out now and then for free. But we don't label it with pro bono. But I think it's more of an Americanism, pro bono. It's worth knowing. Okay, par for the course. That sounds like a reference to golf, but par for the course is something that's typically expected. Maybe you have an argument with your wife. Par for the course. Maybe you find something very difficult and challenging within your industry. It's par for the course. It's expected. Par for the course. Okay, then the last one. I was going to rub this one out. I didn't like it because I thought it's very similar to ad hoc, only when needed, But on the fly is more like as we go along. So maybe you'll learn part of this industry. Your senior could say to you, your mentor could say to you, you will learn this in your industry as we go along. On the fly. Maybe we need to get some lunch, but we can't stop. We've got to eat it on the fly. We've got to eat our lunch on the fly. Things we must do on the fly. I'm going to work on the train, so I'm going to work on the fly whilst I'm going. So these are just some of the unusual and slightly unique terms, phrases, whatever you want to call it. If you have some strange ones that you know, in your language or in your industry, or some really interesting English obscure word or phrase, let me know in the comments. That's it for today. See you next time.